My first tour of service was in the Air Force. I was a Minuteman II missile mechanic, and I joined in my first day of active duty and basic training was September 19th, 1980. I was a Minuteman II missile mechanic at Whiteman Air Force Base. And then, like a fool, I got out of the Air Force. And I got out, and I was out for 2.5 years, and I got a factory job and did real well, did some stuff on my own. I went back to the Air Force, and they said, yeah, we don't take prior service. The Army recruiters right down the hall. And so lo and behold, in 1986, I went into the active duty Army. I ended up all the way up to 70% on my own. And I was happy with that. I was drawing like about 1,400 a month. And I was good to go. Well, the VA in its infinite wisdom reevaluated my stuff. And then I went down to 60%. And then they dropped me down to, it was around 1,200 or something like that. Well, I got to be honest with you. I've met people that were 40 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me, that would laugh because they were 100% right out of the Army, and for lack of better words, were horses' rear ends and didn't understand how valuable this was. It made me angry. I was talking about it at work, and the interesting thing is I was working for the VA. I worked for 5 years for the VA clinic that's just 10 minutes from me in prosthetics, not where limbs and stuff, but everything else. And my supervisor and I were talking, and Lehman said, so what are you going to do about it? And I said, I don't know, but I am so aggravated. And he said, well, there's this company that a friend of mine told me about, Trajector. And he said they might be able to help you. And I said, what does it cost? And he said, only if they get you benefits and or more benefits. And I said, well, give me their contact information. So I reached out to Trajector then. And listen, if it wasn't for the VA putting a hammer on me like that, because it really sent a message to me that we don't really give a crap about you, and you're just a number and you're a percentage. And we saw, and what made it worse was I had a VSO that was telling me that I think I can get you a little more. So he had submitted something for me, and then I got a call from the VA disability people saying, listen, if you pursue this may cause you to lose benefits. But if you go ahead and cancel it and cease this appeal, we won't touch them. And I said, oh, okay. So I did that. And then they still took 10% from me. And so I really felt slighted. So I contacted Trajector, and I mean, they were incredible. It didn't matter who I talked to, what time of day it was. All the people at Trajector were genuine, and they were always there for me and very helpful. Trajector got me money for ED, and I got a letter, and it said that for special something, I got this increase. And I'm like, well, I don't even know what this is. Well, then Trajector reached out and said, hey, congratulations on your increase. Do you want to pay that in a lump sum or send us the 5 payments? And I said, what are you talking about? It doesn't say. I think this is a cost of living. Well, I argued like a fool with him about that, and he stayed calm, and I was an idiot. I mean, I wasn't very nice because I was like, this is the stupidest thing I ever seen. And finally, he's like, well, sir, let me walk you through it. And I'm like, well, okay, and so he did. And I went, oh my gosh. I said, I am so sorry. I said, and he said, sir, it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm glad that we got it sorted out. And I thought, man, I would have been like, screw you, old man, but he was, and I don't remember his name. And, I know I wrote a good review on him at one point. I learned real quick, just listen to them and do what they say, because things were starting to happen. And so I did. And then every time something come through, they would say, okay, well, you got to check for back pay or whatever. And I'm like, well, what is this for? Well, come to find out, because I made that phone call like Trajector told me to do, they went back to that date and paid me that monthly increase for the dates that totaled up. So if I got 10% here and that was extra $200 a month and I did it a year ago, well, I got a check for $2,400 and I started getting my monthly increase, which was really cool. And then Trajector had an idea that I would have never thought about. They asked me, do you get frustrated about your aches and pains and your injuries? And I said, well, yeah. I said, sometimes I have this anxiety that builds up in me when I got to get out of bed, knowing what it's going to feel like when my feet hit the floor and my back. And then I said, and then I get angry, and then I feel this, like I get washed over with a sense of depression. And they're like, that's secondary. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They said, these are symptoms that are mentally impacting you, which I recognize in other people, but did not recognize in myself. And I'm like, come on, Billy, just suck it up, you know? Well, then I ended up getting evaluated, and now all of a sudden they go, okay, for secondary for anxiety and depression, 50% increase. I went, oh my Lord. And then they got me an increase for my feet and I can't remember everything, but I'm at 90% now. 90%. So I'm making or drawing $1,200 a month more now than I was before they took money from me. And the impact is incredible. It was insane what they did for me. And there's no way that I could have ever got to this place without them. My brother, who lives in Missouri that served in the Army, I told him about them. And I'm hoping that he's called. If not, I'll reach out and let him know again, hey, you need to call these people. But it's just been a pleasant experience. And it's nice to have someone to know that, I mean, anytime if I called or sent an email, right away, somebody reached out. And even if they just reached out and said, hey, listen, we got your email, we'll get back with you. And usually, well, always within 24 hours, but usually within a few hours, somebody would call or email me back and say, hey, what can we do for you? Or they would have an answer for my question and just different things like that. So Trajector is aces in my book.